Before we get into the episode proper, we here at the Golden Silent Films podcast want to dedicate this episode to Emily W. Leiter. Though I never knew her personally, her book, Dark Lover, The Life and Death of Rudolph Valentino, has been a pivotal research tool here at the podcast. Now, if you've ever listened to this podcast, especially what we're doing this year, you'd know that her work has been crucial to what we do here at the Golden Silent Films home office. Her book is a seminal work and is definitely on that Mount Rushmore of silent film scholarship. While she is no longer with us, her storytelling, even beyond the life of Valentino, will live on forever. Thank you so much, Emily. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the magazine pages of the Golden Silent Films podcast. We are back to thumb through the life of Rudolph Valentino, and this time, we are smack dab in the middle of Valentino and his appearances in Photoplay magazine. Whether he actually said the things I'm about to recount is neither here nor there. What's important is that they share a little bit of the spirit of our favorite Latin lover. Now, before we open up these 100-year-old periodicals, let's talk about the various Golden Silent Films podcast social media outlets. As usual, head on over to Golden Silence Cast on Instagram and Blue Sky for up-to-date info on this show. And for all of you folks on X or Twitter, just follow at Golden Silence 1 or just search Golden Silence Cast and we should pop up. Also, while you're sailing the high seas of the internet, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of these screen names and sites are going to be in the episode description in case you are interested in checking us out. We would always love to have you on board, and at these social spaces, you're going to get behind-the-scenes pics and info, upcoming episode reveals, and other fun film-related materials. And as always, fun photos of our, I'm assuming, magazine-loving podcasts, Gizmo and Soda. Join us in all of those online pages and keep the silent film conversation going. If you're listening to this episode on release day, it is Sunday, August 23rd, 2026. That is a very special day in the annals of movie history. It was this day 100 years ago that Rudolph Valentino entered mortality at 12:10 p.m. It remains one of the saddest and emotional events in movie history. No doubt there was a ton of pain and sorrow the day Valentino died. The grief was palpable and really consumed the United States and the world. It was while his body lay in state where things really went off the rails. An estimated 100,000 people lined the streets of Manhattan to pay their respects at his funeral. Soon enough, however, things escalated and windows were smashed and riots broke out. It got so wild that even reports of suicides of despondent fans were reported. It took New York's finest mounted officers and police reserve coming out to restore order. Needless to say, things took a turn for the worst. All of that over-the-top grief and violence is one of the reasons we decided to do something different to celebrate the life of Rudolph Valentino. He deserved something special and something unexpected. For this episode, we thought it would be really neat to hear, quote-unquote, from the legend himself. Bring him back to life for an episode on the date of his passing. Personally, I really struggled with how to cover his death, when to cover his death, and a whole host of other Valentino-centric conundrums. So at the end of the day, it seemed only appropriate for Rudy to, speak for himself on this centennial of his death. Now don't worry, we're still planning a whole deep dive into his passing as well as its aftermath, but that, folks, will have to wait for another day. As we initially pitched ideas for this death centennial episode, the concept of not letting the aftermath and after effects of his death overshadow the man himself started popping up. So let's have a more hopeful experience on this sad day while others look back on the tragedy itself. We hope you enjoy the route we've taken with this episode and welcome you to a handful of fascinating Valentino appearances in the movie magazine Photoplay. Like many celebrities of the time, Rudolph Valentino would make his fair share of appearances in movie and industry-related publications. And it is fair to assume that many, if not all, of these quote-unquote interviews are made up completely. I know this and have known it for quite some time, but I am an optimist at heart and still a bit naive, I suppose. My little silent film-filled corner of the world is always a little happier thinking these are all on the up and up. And considering what you are about to hear, I think they all fit with Rudy, and I like to believe he actually had a hand in these. To that end, what we have for you on this somber day are 3 appearances of Rudy in the pages of several issues of Photoplay magazine. One looks at the heart of the Latin lover. Another shows American movie audiences what was going on in Rudy's mind during a tumultuous and litigious era of his life. The first, though, takes us back to the dance floors that made Valentino so very happy. Dancing, as you know, played a huge part in Valentino's life. The act of dancing was able to lift Valentino both spiritually and physically out of some pretty depressing times. When the world was against him, the young man could step out on the dance floor and leave all his worries and concerns behind. In this first Photoplay article, written with Zip by Mary Winship, we join a dance session that sees Rudolph correct some faults commonly seen on the ballroom floor. And we get a vicarious dancing lesson from Rudy, which is pretty cool too. This article first appeared in the May 1922 edition of Photoplay. When Valentino Taught Me to Dance by Mary Winship, Photoplay, May 1922. Winship writes, "Naturally, I was scared to death. Who wouldn't be? I'd seen Rudolph Valentino dance on the screen and in the ballroom. You know how he dances. I must borrow a word from Eleanor Glynn and simply say divine. So when we had finished our coffee, he asked me to dance with him, right there in the Ambassador Ballroom. I was petrified, and yet I simply couldn't resist it. Like Oscar Wilde, I can resist everything except temptation. I said, I'm a perfectly rotten dancer, and I am, or was. Rudolph Valentino smiled. Oh, that's all right. I've taught dancing, you know. The music is corking. I'll see you through somehow. I got up. He put his arm around me. Well, there never was such a dancer. In a couple minutes, I had decided I was Pavlova. Now, he said as he swung into the most fascinating little step, don't be stiff. That's the first essential. You know, good dancing is not a matter of knowing a lot of fancy steps. It's purely a sense of rhythm and of control of your muscles that makes them flexible to follow your will. Shut your eyes and listen to that music. You must feel its variations, not only in your feet, but in your soul. I did. That's great, he said. It is the grace with which your body follows the music that makes a really good dancer. If women forget self-consciousness, they usually have grace and elasticity. Do you mind if I tell you something? I shook my head. I didn't. He could have told me anything. Well, you don't hold your shoulders and neck erect enough. A woman should always hold her shoulders well back from her partner and her head tipped back just a little. That's fine. See how much easier that is? And hold up that weight on your own right arm and hand. You have no idea how a woman tires a man when she lets him support her right hand as though it were a piece of iron. The music stopped. Rudolph gallantly applauded. He's really awfully sweet. Why, you're a corking dancer, he said. Anybody not on crutches could dance with that man. Most women dance too close to their partners or too clumsily far away. You can't dance with a woman that gets too close. See, this is right. I hold you close to me about the waist. Then with your shoulders back, we are several inches apart from the waist up. Now, see if you can follow me. I'm going to do a fancy step or two. His arm supported me like a brace. I swung myself back, closed my eyes, breathed in the music, and followed. I couldn't have been so proud if I had swum the English Channel. We sat down, and Rudolph ordered more coffee and lit my cigarette. You know, he said, the secret of good dancing lies in the knees. You must be elastic on your knees. Always dance on the ball of the foot. The most terrible woman in the world to dance with is one who dances on her heels. Never touch the heel to the floor. I hate a woman that drags her feet as though they were floor polishers. Skip lightly, yet always keeping the ball of the foot on the floor. The most common mistake I find with American women in dancing is that they shake their shoulders. That's terrible. Even when you dance the shimmy. Do you? I said I didn't, but I made a mental reservation. I decided that if he asked me to shimmy, I would. You know how those things are. Well, in the shimmy or in ordinary dancing, never move your shoulders. Never move from the waist up. Shake your hips lightly and gracefully, or pivot from your waist. But above everything, do not move your shoulders. The music started again. Come on, said Rudolfo. Let's dance. I did. And since I've been following his instructions to the letter and practicing in my bedroom, I find I have more partners in dances than I know what to do with. And that's why I'm passing it on to you. I really enjoyed reading that one. It was fun seeing a different side to Rudy. You could really tell what dancing meant to him reading how he led Mary Winship through the routine. As a writer, she really made me feel as if I was there watching this event. Considering over 100 years have passed since this article was written, it's amazing how much it still transports you into that moment. I can totally picture the setting, the vibe, and the act of the two of them working the dance floor. And much like Mary, I am a terrible dancer, so I totally feel her pain. To be honest, I may or may not have taken some notes from their conversation. Heck, I personally would love to get a lesson on the dance floor from him. If anyone can turn me into a moderately decent dancer, it would be Rudolph Valentino. I also really enjoy the fact that this article shows what a great teacher Rudy was. It seems as though he got as much joy from teaching dancing as he did from the dance itself. Another aspect that article brought to the surface was how charming Rudy was, especially when he was in his element, in a place that made him happy, you could say. You really can't see how ladies could become so hypnotized by his presence. Not even counting his smoldering handsomeness, but his charm was second to none. Now, while the tango came easy, the fairer sex always proved to be a struggle for Rudolph Valentino in matters of love and marriage. While he was killing it on the silver screens across the world, his love life wasn't proving to be nearly as successful. From troubled marriages to arrests to bigamy charges, Rudy had a terrible trouble finding that perfect life companion. We will definitely dive deep into the marital woes and romantic woes of Valentino at some point, but again, let's focus on the man himself for this special episode. Since we are talking about love, let's turn our attention to an article Rudy wrote for the March 1922 issue of Photoplay. In case you had any confusion about what this article is about, it's entitled Women and Love. In this, Rudy takes us through his thoughts on love and loss. And I must warn you, though, this article contains some less than flattering terms and problematic statements, but on the whole, really shows what a hopeless romantic Valentino was. So, without further ado, let's get into the heart of this special episode. It's a little long, but really provides a great emotional look at the heart of Rudy, and is certainly interesting reading considering how his love life would ultimately play out. Women and Love, Photoplay Magazine, March 1922. By Rudolph Valentino. When you ask me to write for you what I think about women, I feel that I must produce for you something that would look like the Encyclopedia Britannica. Yet when I should be through with this great work, I shall still have said less than nothing about women. We cannot know woman because she does not know herself. She is the unsolvable mystery, perhaps because there is no solution. The Sphinx has never spoken, perhaps because she has nothing to say. But since woman is the legitimate object of man's thoughts, and mine have been somewhat distilled in the alcohol of experience, I may be able to give you a little draught of truth. English is not my own tongue, as you know. In Italian, French, Spanish, I might express myself better, for there we have such little words that have fire and understanding, and delicate shades of meaning, to which I know not yet the English translations. My point of the view on women is Latin, is continental. The American man I do not understand at all. I have lived much in Paris, in Rome, and New York, and from this traveling, which is of the finest to develop the mind and understanding soul, I have composed my little philosophy about woman. For there is only one book in which you may read about woman. That is the book of life, and even that is written in cipher. But those who refuse to read it are generally more deeply wounded than those who digest it thoroughly. What comes to my mind first as I try to put into some order my ideas on this all-important subject, I will tell you. It is this. Which of the women I have known, have perhaps loved a little, do I remember instantly, and which I have forgotten, so that I must think of and think to recall them at all? The most difficult thing in the world is to make a man love you when he sees you every day. The next is to make him remember that he has loved you when he no longer sees you at all. Strangely enough, I remember the women who told me perhaps their little lonelinesses, who spoke in close moments true and sweet and simple heartthrobs. Even the highest peak of emotion is finished. It has flamed, gone out, and told us very little about life. It was to enjoy, to drink deeply, but never is even that treasured in the heart as those are of moments of simple, tender confidences, when a gentle, loving sigh opened the treasure house of a woman's heart, and she spoke truly of those things within. A man likes even the bad women he knows to be good. To a woman who has revealed her soul, who has given a brief glimpse of her heart, no man ever pays the insult to forget. He pays her homage. I remember a little Italian girl I once knew. She was very beautiful, so young. We used to sit in a tiny cafe we knew in Naples and hold hands quite openly. I do not think I ever kissed her. We talked little, for she was not educated. It was not her magnificent eyes, nor the glory of her hair that was like a blackbird's wing, nor the round white curves of her young body. I remember her because of those little intimate moments when our thoughts were bound together by her simple, tender, gentle words. We were intimates, and the soul is such a lonely thing that it treasures those moments of companionship. And this, surrender to confidence, to real intimacy of the soul and heart, speaks a much greater surrender to love, a much deeper capacity to love than all the passion of a Cleopatra. There was another woman in France, an older woman, the wife of a painter. I loved her because she was the only grave woman I have ever known who did not depress. I never saw her smile, but beneath that smooth, impartial beauty, that pearl-like, moon-like loveliness of hers, flowed a molten lava of shy, strong sentimentalism which her mind condemned. It has remained with me like the perfume of a cathedral. There was a little artist model, too, in Paris. Oh, of such a saucy, impudent, swift little creature you have not heard. She had eyes like black coals and round little cheeks where hung the scarlet banner of her youth and joie de vivre. She was enchanting. She danced like a bacchante. Her red lips were always laughing and singing and flinging teasing little mots at you. And she had a little hat which she herself made over every day, so that I thought she must have at least a dozen hats, and I was madly jealous of the man who must make this extravagance possible. Now, it was not her coquetry or her vivid young beauty nor her wild youth that makes her live in my memory, but the sweet little incongruity of that little hat that her nimble fingers changed each day. Tenderness is absolutely the strongest, most lasting, most trustworthy emotion that a woman can arouse in a man. It is a great force that modern woman disregards. All women are divided into two classes in the mind of a man. Often they are so mixed up that you do not know which is which until you go down very deep. Then it does not matter, for in an affair of amour, a counterfeit is often better than the real thing. In my poor English, let me say that there are what I would call joy women and duty women. Now understand, the joy woman may be very good and the duty woman might be very bad. That is just their relation to man. The first kind are the kind that you want to take with you on your joyful, carefree wanderings into life's highways and byways. The others are the women who are possibilities to share the principal things of life: home, family, children. For a wife, a man should pick out a woman who is pretty, has a good disposition, and is domestically inclined. They are very rare now, I admit. One is too apt to be deceived by their easy method of comradeship. Let her be your inferior if possible. Then she will be happy with you. It is much more essential to marriage that a woman be happy in it than a man. I do not mean a butterfly that flits from beauty parlor to beauty parlor, but a good woman who has the old-fashioned virtues. We Europeans do not expect too much of one woman. The difficulty with love and marriage in this country is that the man has let the game get out of his hand. A woman can never have a happy love affair with a man unless he is her superior. It just can't be done. The love affair where the woman is the stronger in mind and knowledge is always a tragedy or a farce. I do not like women who know too much. Remember, it was from the serpent that Eve was given the apple from the tree of knowledge. Just so would I make the tree of knowledge of life today, forbidden to women. If they must eat of it, let them do so in secret and burn the core. Now, do not misunderstand this that I say. I do not mean this in regard to intelligence, to education, even to position. The more cultured and accomplished a woman is, the more exquisite she is to love, the more like gold that is soft to touch and handle. With her, all is delicate and attractive, all is beautiful and fine. Her mind is attuned to beauty, and beauty itself is a religion. No, when I speak thus of an inferior, a superior, I mean in experience of life, in power to do, in ways of love. The man may be a digger in the ditch and the woman a teacher in the school, but he is the master of her if he knows more of the world than she does. It is not becoming that a woman should know the world. It is not proper that a lady should go to places or to things where she acquires this knowledge. If she knows these things, she must be clever enough to conceal her knowledge, like the girl who can swim a mile, yet with much grace and helplessness she allows me to teach her swimming. How completely the modern woman in America tries to destroy romance. How ugly and cut and dry it has become, love. Either it must be marriage or it must be ugly scandal. The brilliant, absorbing, delightful, dangerous, innocent, sometimes sport of love, how it goes. She knows too much about life and too little about emotion. She knows all of the bad and none of the good about passion. She has seen everything, felt nothing. She arouses in me disgust. Sometimes a man may feel that he would rather a woman had done many, many bad things, real bad things, and yet been delicate and quiet and dignified, than to see her common. If the bloom has been rubbed from the peach, let her paint it back on with an artistic hand. Should I try again to find me a wife, I say, let me find one who wishes to have children and who, when she has had them, wishes to take care of them. This is the proper test for the good woman who is to share the side of your life. No other woman can ever mean to a man what his children's mother means to him, if she does not let herself get fat and ugly and old. No man can love a woman who lets herself get fat and careless and unpleasant. He must then constantly make comparisons of her with the beautiful young girls about. A wife's first duty is to keep her husband from making comparisons. A man is always intrigued to see a woman with a child. The Sistine Madonna is as famous and as beloved as Mona Lisa. But for a sweetheart, that is different. To me, I have been won always by the woman who has a great ability to feel. I have never yet seen a cold woman who interested me. A reluctant woman, yes, but reluctant only as a flower is reluctant to bloom in winter. Place it in the hothouse of proper wooing, and it blossoms. She must have intelligence. A love affair with a stupid woman, no matter how beautiful, is like cold coffee for breakfast. Then, when he kisses her, she gives him back his kiss. No caveman can ever know the sweetness of that returned kiss. What she does for love. So she is happy in it, and makes neither herself nor him miserable with reproaches. Even if he never sees her again, she will cherish a fond memory of him. She has not lost her self-respect. The affair may last a long time, and much happy companionship is possible to them. A woman loves finesse. In Europe, we are taught to be most polite, to be curious, to entertain the ladies. When we go into a drawing room, we talk of art, music, books. We tell a witty remark or two. Everyone is happy and amused. One is never rude, but tries to show the greatest attentions and charms he possesses. Then, when he goes, the ladies, and maybe one upon whom he has his eyes, says, "What a charming and amusing person." You see, women love with their ears, men with their eyes. Ah, yes, in the small matters one is a slave, but in the big things, he is master. To argue about little things with a woman, to get angry, is one thing that no man versed in the arts of love ever does. After all, it is the woman who decides whether she finds you charming. It is only after you have won her love that you dare be master. One can always be kind to a woman one cares nothing about, and to a woman by whom one is attracted, but only cruel to a woman one loves or has loved. There are several kinds of women, several kinds of methods of wooing on their part that are irresistible to me. I love the dainty little woman who plays seriously at being domestic. She fascinates me. Everything womanly, distinctly feminine in a woman appeals to me. I adore her bird-like ways, her sweet pretenses, her delicious prettiness. I love her almost as one loves a cunning child, and when to this is added the fillip of sex, she becomes perfect. I do not like her flippant, cold-blooded little tricks, but those soft, lovable ways of a little woman, those melting, helpless little ways of hers, that brings tears to your eyes and fire to your lips. Then there is the silent, mysterious woman who fences divinely, who knows silently and secretly the secrets of the coquette. that last art of woman, in always leaving herself an opportunity to retreat, who is always at hand that last weapon of woman, surrender. The greatest asset to a woman is dignity. It is her shield. With it, she may commit indiscretions that a vulgar Puritan could never attempt. Dignity in a woman always puzzles a man. He likes it. He admires it. He feels confidence in the woman who displays it. He knows that she will never make a fool of herself or of him. Nothing so fascinates me as the ability of a woman to get great pleasure from life. It is so short. The tragedy of age is not that one grows old, but that one's heart stays young. Life that develops the soul slowly disintegrates the body. Therefore, let us make merry while we can. I cannot stand a woman who is afflicted with ennui. My countrywomen possess the gorgeous quality of enjoying life, of loving it, of getting all from it that there is to get, more than all other women. But they are never hoydenish nor restless. They have a grace and poise and polish. Love is honey. It is a flower, and may be fierce as a tiger lily, but it must be beautiful, delicate, and gentle too. Now that, folks, was a remarkable piece of writing. It was like we had a second sight into the romantic psyche of Rudolph Valentino. Again, this article transported me through time. I could see the young Italian putting pen to paper as a rush of emotion poured out. All of his thoughts, all of his ideas just coming out onto the page. This piece ended up quite poetic and really showed a high level of emotional depth. Also, considering English wasn't his first language, this is also a very technically proficient essay of sorts. I went to college for professional writing and couldn't collect my thoughts in such a dramatic and powerful way. I love reading this because it really makes you feel closer to the cinematic superstar. And let's not speed past his sharing of vulnerabilities at this high point of his career. You can definitely see his mother in those descriptions of what he considered the ideal partner. He really was the ultimate mama's boy who held his romantic partners to the unattainable level of perfection he saw in his mother. That really shows up when he talks about how a mother should treat her children. There really is a lot in this article to take in and let simmer, and for better or worse, I feel like that's all we can hope for. To read something like this gives a new perspective on someone we thought we knew. I also really enjoyed the story about the girl who always changed her hats. I love how he focused on the subtle, emotional moments like that to illustrate concepts and thoughts of love, and not always with the physical or the intimate. Now, whether Rudy legitimately wrote this or not, it definitely fits with how he would speak about love and his various thoughts on courtship and romance. This article is really on brand for the star actor and seems like something he would totally write. Now, of course, there was some unflattering language used, but we need to remember that this was written in a very specific era of time. So while today it doesn't all go down smoothly, it provides a valuable window into the heart of a man who always sought validation from others. You see the pure essence of Valentino here, and I think that is great. Overall, I really enjoyed this article. It was truly an adventure to go on. It really took us into the romantic heart of Rudolph Valentino. Now, despite its length, there was never a moment when it was boring or overdone. Like I said earlier, it was very well written and gives us a modern look back in time, like some sort of time-traveling readers we are. Now, while Valentino certainly had his trouble in romance around this time, he would also have trouble on the set of his movies. In fact, things were so bad for the star, he tried to get a divorce from famous players Lasky. Now, Valentino would declare a one-man strike against famous players. There were a whole host of reasons Rudy took this extreme measure for, and our next Valentino-penned article will serve as an airing of grievances, if you will. Valentino wasn't the only one getting litigious and fighting for something. Let's turn to the January 1923 issue of Photoplay and learn why Valentino was so convinced that famous players was holding him back. This one is called An Open Letter from Valentino to the American Public. From Photoplay, January 1923. Valentino begins, "My dear friends, in the past few months, I have received many thousands of letters from my friends in the motion picture audiences of America, asking me why I had ceased to make pictures and what I intended to do in the future. The newspaper reports of the court proceedings were for the most part unfair and ridiculous. I was pictured as highly temperamental, as grasping for money, and they made much out of certain little incidents brought out at the trial to prove that I had been unjustly treated. It is a great privilege, therefore, to be able to talk to you through the pages of Photoplay magazine, for which I have a great admiration because it has always been fair and impartial to producers, actors, whether they are stars or not, authors, and directors. It was you, the fans, who made me. When I played Julio in The Four Horsemen, no one in the industry expected me to become a star. I did not dare to hope for such a thing. But you discovered me and created me. Your kindness came to me at a time when it seemed that things could not be more desolate. You made theater managers know me, and you caused film magazines and newspapers to be conscious of me. I am more grateful than you will ever know. It is a great honor, but a greater responsibility. Idols are created to be shattered. My pedestal is at present a little too high to be entirely comfortable. I feel too humble for such an altitude. In the very nature of things, I know that I cannot occupy such a position for very long. But before I fall, I hope to bring you my little best as a gesture of thanks for all that you have brought to me. You write and tell me that I bring romance into your lives. You say I give you color and beauty and dreams. I wish that I had more English words at my command to express to you what such a faith in me means. It is so difficult for me to show you that this has not made me proud of myself, but rather very humble and eager to serve you. Please do believe that. Perhaps I can best explain it to you by saying that it makes me feel that personally I do not matter. I feel as though I were simply a medium through which these things were being given to you. It is that I feel quite unreal. The Rudolph Valentino you have brought forth is very different from the Rudolph Valentino who actually is. I assure you he is quite a commonplace fellow. But this other Valentino, this shadow personality, must dedicate himself to the work you expect of him. For him there is only work, constant creative work. He must strive to be that character whom you want to see. He must try to show you the beauty and joy of love, the radiance of life, and the tragedy of death. He must try to live for you those dreams that you may not have been able to work out for yourself. He can no longer belong entirely to himself. Were I an artist working in any other medium, I could give you as far as my ability would permit, whatever product I desired. Were I a painter, I would choose my own colors. Were I a musician, I could play my own melodies. Were I a Rodin, I could try to create for you a hand of God. But I am only an actor on the screen. As such, I am dependent upon my producers. When the producers in November of 1921 offered me a contract, I knew nothing whatsoever about the film business. I knew only that the acting end and very little of that. I had never before worked save on a picture-to-picture basis. Therefore, when they told me not to bother with details, that everything would be arranged as I wanted it, I signed without further hesitancy. I did not bother to investigate. I was not a good businessman. My contract called for $1,250 a week. After I had paid for many of the clothes to be worn in my pictures, and every actor requires an extensive wardrobe of expensive clothes, and had answered thousands of fan letters every week, and sent my pictures when they were requested, you can imagine I had very little left. But even at that, I was willing to go on at the same salary if they would permit me to make real photoplays, instead of making cut-and-dried program features that can be hacked and torn and compressed into a given number of feet of film to fit so many cans, like so many boxes of sardines. I was not temperamental. I was not grasping. I do not consider myself a great actor yet. But I did have in me a deep feeling for the art of the motion picture, gratitude to the public, and an overwhelming, almost terrifying feeling of my responsibility to continue to appear in good pictures and to continue to be worthy of the praise that you heaped upon me. When I was offered $7,000 a week by the same producers if I would go back to work on the cut-and-dried program picture basis, I refused it. And when I refused it, I agreed to go back to work on my old salary if they would permit a certain writer and a certain director to have the last word on the pictures to be made. I tried to withdraw my personality from the controversy entirely. These two people are recognized by the producers as fair-minded, capable craftsmen and artists, but they wouldn't even agree to that. When I saw The Young Rajah, the last picture which I appeared and on which I worked day and night, I felt I had raised the issue one picture too late. I was terribly disappointed in it. I felt sick. I appreciated that the producers have a problem, If they turn out program pictures, all of equal length and all to be run in the same number of minutes and all supposed to cost approximately the same, some cannot be as good as others. But I felt it was an imposition to put me in weak stories in order to bolster them up, just because the public had shown a disposition to flock to see those in which I appeared. 3 or 4 pictures of this kind would kill me. You would say, we thought Valentino was great. He isn't so good. Well, as I said, I am not selfish for money. Money means very little to me, and I have gone without it long enough to be used to it. I am selfish in wanting to make good pictures. I don't want to be a cog in a machine that grinds them out in a cut and dried fashion. Art cannot be measured by inches. I say today that if this company will permit the writer and director in whom I have such confidence to have the last word on pictures in which I appear, and run them story length, if they will give me the contract I thought they explained to me I was getting in the first place, I will go right back to work. But I won't go back to work unless they let me make good pictures. My salary of $1,250 a week may seem a great deal of money, but it is actually less than the salary of any other prominent star on the screen. Mary Miles Minter gets $8,000, Norma Talmadge $10,000, William Farnham $10,000, Thomas Meighan $5,000, to mention but a few, and if they were not worth it to the companies they work for, the companies would not pay it to them. If I continue on the old basis, I cannot be true to myself nor true to you. There is a clause in my contract that prevents my doing other work whatsoever. So while I'm fighting this case, I cannot even become an undertaker's assistant if I should want to. I believe, however, that I am going to win. My debt of gratitude to you is very great. I have faith in the kindliness of your heart. Sincerely, Rudolph Valentino. So we finish our Valentino Tells All episode with another banger of an article written by the man himself. This was especially fun because it was written as a letter to the movie-going public that sees Rudy explaining his side of the messy squabble between himself and the studio. He stated his case in an effort to win the public's support. It's a very early example of a celebrity using the press to gain an advantage over a perceived enemy. I also thought this article was great because it takes us, the readers, inside the creative heart of Rudolph Valentino. You get to see what made the star tick as far as acting goes. It was fascinating to see the ambitions of Rudy as he worked to navigate the choppy waters of Hollywood. We got to go past the paycheck, which is still important, and focus in on what Rudy saw truly as his full potential. One segment I was especially drawn to was where he was talking about how idols are meant to be toppled and shattered. He talked about how uncomfortable he was on such a high pedestal. Aside from being incredibly poetic, it was also a bit sad knowing how his life would ultimately play out. And again, this was impeccably written by the Latin lover. In another universe, he'd have had a great career as a politician. He does a great job of painting the studio as the villain and earning support for himself, and it worked. Eventually, famous players Lasky would push back, issuing public statements portraying Valentino as more troublesome, citing his marriage issues and mounting debts. The studio maintained that it had done everything possible to support him and claimed credit for making him a major star. Valentino rejected the claims of being difficult or ungrateful, claiming he ultimately only wanted to make better films. Now, as a completely unbiased and objective podcast who totally isn't in the middle of a season dedicated to how cool Rudolph Valentino is, we have to cast our vote for Rudy in this battle of star versus studio. Again, this well-written letter did exactly what Rudolph set out to do. When people ask the ubiquitous question, if you could invite anybody, living or dead, to dinner, who would it be? I always have a few interchangeable names that flip and flop depending on my mood at the moment. But there is, however, one name that is always a locked-in guarantee. That forever dinner guest is Rudolph Valentino. Ever since I first got into silent films, I've always wanted to pick the brain of Valentino. I feel like his interviews and writings, like these ones we've talked about today, provide a little glimpse of what some of those dinner conversations might be like. Valentino seems like an open book, and always gives the impression he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and I love that. I think a deep conversation with Rudy would be incredible, but in lieu of that, interviews and articles like these ultimately bring us closer to this silent film idol. Now, spoiler alert, Valentino would eventually break free of famous players and continue to make films. Unfortunately, roughly 2 years later, the megastar would be dead. Wherever you are out there, Rudy, we hope you enjoyed this look into your life through your own words. One of the world's first silver screen icons left us with a legacy that is still with us today, 100 years later. Though he's been gone for a century now, he leaves with us his story, his movies, and in a few fleeting instances, his words. So with this hopefully not too somber look at Rudolph Valentino winding down, we want to thank you for spending your Latin Lover podcast time with us. It's been a lot of fun going deeper into the psyche of Rudolph Valentino, whether he actually wrote these or not. There is so much great content to mine from the life of this cinematic legend, especially when we dig a little deeper into what makes him tick. So did you enjoy this out-of-the-box celebration of Rudolph Valentino? What Valentino flicks are you loving right now? Are there any articles or interviews with Rudy that we missed? Tell us your Valentino-centric stories. Let us know all the details at the various social media spots of the Golden Silent Films podcast. On that note, if you've forgotten, we're on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter. Let us know what you thought of this episode. What silent and silent-related movies or personalities, past or present, do you want us to look at next? Our world of silent movie knowledge and experience is constantly expanding, and we need your input for future episodes here and beyond. Again, if you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or any other podcast outlet that allows it, subscribe, rate, and review. We really, really appreciate all of your incredible support, and seeing how much you folks are listening to on all of our many platforms only makes us want to make the best show possible. So with all of that being said, we cannot thank you fine listeners enough for all of your fine listening. And don't forget, the silents are golden, and the talkies are just a fad.